Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio.
Welcome, dear friends, to Kardec Radio in the Spiritist Society of Virginia in our public talks. It's our public meeting. The center is open and physically, starting June on Saturdays, you'll be able to come in person to participate in our meeting, Gospel Under the Pine Tree. We would recommend that if you're locally, that you come. Why? We need the sun to live. We need the sun. We are not self-sufficient. For people who say, I'm fine at home, praying at home, not true. If we have an opportunity to go in person, it's great. It's great to be home, but it's also important to leave our cocoon. We're not going to be like this forever, and we can't. It's not natural. It's a temporary measure. But we would recommend for everybody who lives nearby the Northern Virginia area that they come along. Join us Saturday, starting June 5th at 11 a.m. at the Spiritist Society of Virginia. It's going to be safe because we're outside using masks, social distancing. It's under the trees, and it's very, very therapeutic. We did it once last Saturday, and it was very beneficial. Come along and join us. But if you are not here, let's still stay here together through this channel at Kardec Radio. Today, we're going to talk about a most important topic, back to the spiritual realm. Millions of people around the world have experienced it in the last year. Within this last year, how this transition happens, we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about the spiritual realm, the transition between death, discarnation, and much more. It's very important to know, so we are not only informed, but we help others get to know as well and prepare ourselves, because a sure thing, today we're closer to death than yesterday. And that's not morbid. It's logic. It's true. That's going to happen. Today we're closer to it than we've ever been in this reincarnation. No matter whether we like it or not. It's a reality we need to cherish, because we enter the airplane, but we have to get off the plane at some point. This is discarnation. So now we're going to prepare ourselves with a message that our dear friend Camila has prepared to read for us as a therapeutic moment. So we join our forces and form a current of light.
Good evening. Tonight we will read a message call regarding mediums from the book Conduta Espírita by André Luiz, psychographed by Valdo Vieira, Chapter 4. Avoid the assumption that you hold responsibilities or missions of great transcendence. Recognize yourself as a humble bearer of ordinary tasks, albeit as grave and important as those of any other person. The harvester of Christ is always a servant of love. In your free time between family obligations and work that ensures your subsistence, conquer unforeseen events that may prevent you from attending meetings, such as unexpected visits, weather events, and other reasons. Staying loyal to your own duties. Without inner euphoria, there is no productive mediumistic practice. Prepare your own soul in prayer and meditation before mediumistic activity. Avoid, however, being mentally focused on these practices during the Spiritist lectures, except when you have concurrently assigned special tasks, so that you do not deprive yourself of the teachings. Prayer is the light shining into the soul, reflecting the divine light. Control the mediumistic manifestations that you are an instrument of, repressing as much as possible heavy breathing, moaning, screaming, and contortions of the body, as well as slapping hands, stomping feet, and any other violent gestures. The medium is always directly responsible for the message that he or she carries. Silence any pretentiousness as you engage in mediumistic phenomena. Spontaneity is the seal of trust in our communications with the spiritual realm. Do not take, even if indirectly, material gain from the mediumistic phenomenon. There is no sanctifying service in mediumship related to inferior interests. Extinguish obstacles, concerns, and negative impressions related to the mediumistic exchange, be it from the vigilant consciousness or the somnambulistic unconsciousness during the trance. Let go of useless fears as well as debilitating susceptibilities, allowing yourself to be guided by rational faith and devotion towards others. Those who intend to move forward in good faith should disregard all causes for disturbance, even when derived from well-intended circles. Refuse the toxicity of flattery. A proud attitude leads to ruin. Escape from the dangers that threaten mediumship, such as ambition, lack of self-analysis, lack of perseverance in the good, and the vanity by which you judge yourself invulnerable. The medium carries his or her biggest enemies within.
Thank you, Camila, for helping us. And now we invite everyone to join us in a prayer. Let us remember that prayer is, above all, communication with God. We can communicate with God in so many different ways, but prayer is certainly the pathway. When we are collectively praying, we're making an exercise to focus in the same wavelength, which is very tricky. How do we do it? We follow the person's words and try to join in with feelings without judgment and without inner petitions. Thus, we will be following through Jesus' recommendation, where two or more are gathered in my name, there will be. We want him here, don't we? So let us pray. Let us feel this togetherness now. Dear Master Jesus, Governor of our planet, sweet and kind, firm and determined, you lovingly came to exemplify a new way of living, the human way. But we, in our animalistic conditionings, haven't understood it yet. We want to open ourselves to the good, and especially the general good, forgetting about our needs, while molding the good with all the resources you've granted to us to benefit everyone. And we trust that at this moment, all those who have their names in the book of prayer at the Spirit Society of Virginia, at Kardec Radio, the Spirit Society of Washington, D.C., they shall receive the loving visit of your messengers, to be treated in the loving kindness of the remedies granted by God. Before we begin our therapeutic meeting, we ask for those who are in the hospitals, for those who are either working in the hospitals or as patients within it, nursing homes, shelters, animal shelters as well. We pray for the homeless in refugee camps. We trust that everyone is being carefully guided, cared for, though majority of us do not perceive it or even despise it, rebelling against the divine providence. We know everything shall pass, and we trust that our togetherness at this moment shall be beneficial to others as well, as you multiply in your love the crumbs of our offer to those who have less of anything. May they feel enriched in hope, in love, compassion, peace, new guidance, feeling the presence and the embrace of your messengers with you. We open this meeting in your name and love, and so be it. All right. So now we are going to begin before the topic, the Spirit's Book moment. And we'll be sharing with you one question and answer. Why is it so important to study the Spirit's Book? Because it's the foundation. All the books that are towards the good are good, but this one is unique. It began a new era in humanity. The Spirit's Book in 1857 brings to us the constitution of our souls, as Mentor Joseph said a while ago. It contains the new understanding of who we are, why we're here, and where we're heading to. So if people are confused nowadays, some people talk about, I'm so confused, I don't know. This book has all the answers, by the way, 1,019 answers Two questions that were raised by the renowned Allan Kardec, the genius of humanity, still to be found by many. Today, as we're studying a new question, we're talking about happiness. Who is not seeking happiness, right? But how can we achieve it? So it's going to be question 932. Why do the wicked of this world usually exert a great influence over the good? Is this right or not? Think about how many people around the world are asking, how come? And I see lately, we see the news, celebrities now going to the news and saying that they are not he, they are not she, they are this, and we respect. But we forget that what they are proclaiming is influence over others that may not be well secured in their own identity. So we need to understand how come this happens. Why? The answer is very to the point, because the good are not assertive. The wicked are scheming and daring, whereas the good are timid. The moment they want to, the later will prevail. The good will prevail. It's tricky because Jesus said he's not good, right? When they said, good master, he said, master I am, but not good. And now we're puzzled. Are we good versus whomever is evil? And then the people whom we think are evil, they say they are good and we are evil. It's so confusing. So how do we know if we are, let's say, cheering for the good in our everyday lives? Maybe we're not good yet in the classification of the hierarchy of spirits. But let's talk about now the fact that we may not be good, but we want the good. So we're getting there. But there are people who don't want the good. They want their own personal agenda to take place. And that's what we're calling wicked. And they are assertive. They push as much as they want. Why? Because you and I know what's right and what's wrong, but we don't say it. Let's talk about vaccine. There are people who are afraid of telling people that, you should take vaccine. And they say, oh, but I don't want to interfere. And that's what they're talking about. They're timid. And you know what? When we're that timid, we're risking our own lives. Because if now people stop using masks and are not vaccinated, people are not only going to get sick, they are going to find a new variant, because mingling is the best thing for mutations of the virus. And then another wave comes along, and here we are all over again. Why? Because those who know of the good, vaccine is good, and they do not advocate for it. The ones who are ignorant and advocate for the anti-vax movement, because they are daring, they may win. How many people we may know in our daily basis who have not vaccinated, especially people who work in the front lines of cleaning, housekeeping, car wash, and other food, right? The food industry. When you pass by drive-through, why don't you ask, have you been vaccinated? You can ask. You don't need an answer, but say, I just want you to know that it's important. Oh, you did great. No, if I were you, I would. It's a matter of public health. You're not pushing anybody against anything, but we need to dare to advocate for the good. We're too shy in the name of whatever it is, people's free will, but then it's everybody's problems in terms of public health. So be a public health advocate. Advocate for vaccination. Advocate for prayers. Advocate for God, because people don't want to talk about God, right? People are going to look at me in a strange way, Vanessa. I don't want to post these spiritist things in my social media because I may lose my work. Okay, so question 932 is for you. Your fear, your shyness is costing humanity's progress because your share is not being done. So we have homework to do, to ask ourselves whether we are in this team of the timid who know the good but are afraid of advocating for the good. Whereas the other ones who do not want the good, they are not shy at all to keep advocating for the greatest craziness of the theories that they create about all and anything. So it's a call for you and for me. We're all invited to a new way of feeling about the good and joining forces with God. Well, talking about the good, we have more good news here. And we have Luciana and Daisy who will now help us understand back to the spiritual realm. We are going to think about right now, we're closer to going back to the spiritual realm than we've ever been in this reincarnation. It's crazy to think, but it's true. Closer than we imagine. It could be today, could be tomorrow, could be in a few decades or many decades. We don't know. But we know we're closer than we've ever been. As the days go by, are we ready to get out of the plane of this life and go back to our spiritual home? What are we carrying in our luggage? What's going to happen? Where we're going to go? How do we do this transition? These are some of the questions that may be answered here today, as Daisy and Luciana will help us with it. Right, Luciana?
Right. We're going to start with Daisy.
That's right, Vanessa. So good evening, friends. And tonight we are going to be talking about this topic that is so important, especially nowadays, going back to the spiritual realm. So we will start today, as Vanessa just shared with us, with the message that we know everyone will go back to the spiritual realm because that is our true home. That's what Spiritism brings to us. A reminder that our true home is not here on what we know, our terrestrial life, but the spiritual life is our true home. And this beautiful analogy that Vanessa and the mentors bring to us is a great way for us to think about our reincarnation. It's like when we go and travel and we get on the airplane. Well, we know that the trip we're going to have a length of time. It might be a short trip, a long trip. We know that the plane has a limited amount of fuel. In our case, we have our vital fluid that comes with us. We reincarnate with a certain amount of vital fluid. Some will live to 100. Others will live just a few days, a few hours. So that is our few in our lives. And that's for certain. We know the plane will land and we'll have to disembark. But where will we go? What happens after we discarnate? Those are questions, and that is the question that Kardec asked the spirits. What does the soul become after that? What becomes of our soul after that? And the spirit's answer, it becomes a spirit again. In other words, it returns to the world of the spirits that it left for some time. So that is our certainty. We will go back. We came from the spiritual realm. We'll go back to our true home. But then we might be asked, in what sense should we understand this eternal life? How can we understand this? Well, the Spirit says only the life of the Spirit is eternal. Our physical body, blessed it is, it will perish, but our spirit lives eternally. The life of the body is transitory and temporary. When the body dies, the soul returns to the eternal. So the mentors at the Spirit Society of Virginia and Kardec Radio always ask us to do a daily exercise. And this is not for us to be morbid, thinking about death. No, but for us to think every day, I don't know when, but I will go back to my true home. Every time we're going to leave our homes, we don't know if we're going to see our loved ones. Oh, Daisy, but I don't want to think about it. I don't want to talk about it. But that is why, friends, as Vanessa mentioned to us, we don't know when we will be called. And we need to prepare ourselves every day. If we need to reconcile with someone, why should we wait? Why not make that phone call, write that message, that email today? Let's not leave for tomorrow because we don't know what tomorrow brings. Only God knows. And when God calls us, we'll have to be ready because it's our turn. So how does discarnation happen? That is our next question. And in order to illustrate, we're going to bring as a case study today, a case that is described in this book, Works of the Life Eternal, in the collection of André Luiz books. The same spirit who brought us the book Nosso Lar, he comes back. And in this book specifically, he describes 5 different cases of discarnation. Tonight, we're going to focus on Dimas, but we recommend you to go to the book and read more. We will just bring some highlights of Dimas' case to illustrate as we talk about discarnation. So, who was Dimas? André Luiz describes in the book that Dimas was actually a spiritist. He was a very dedicated worker. He was humble. He lived a life working very, very hard to maintain his family, but he never left. He never stopped to think about others. He served. He was a medium, so he worked at the Spirit Center as a medium. So he was a dedicated worker. And because of that, he had married. He had married to be, let's say, helped in a more careful way by the higher spirits. That's the first thing for us to remember. At the moment of discarnation, there are help that comes from the spirit realm. But it will depend on us, the choices that we make and our connections. So if we are someone like Dimas, who not only at that few moments, but through our lives, we work in our spirituality, we work in helping others, we will be accompanied by the higher spirits who will be there. But if we spend our lives in the vices of the material world, although the spirits will be there watching us, our connections will determine. But Dimas, he had married. So André Luiz was there with the mentors that came to help in this process. But this process didn't happen just a few hours. It took some time. Dimas was sick. He had a condition. He was sick for some time. But because of his marriage, actually a few days before his discarnation, he not only had the support of the mentors who were there giving passes, he and other spirits were taken to the spiritual realm where they actually received instructions about their discarnation. So, although when they come back, so during the time of sleep, they were taken to the higher spirit to receive guidance about the process, to receive treatment, as we see here, spiritual passes in the spiritual realm while his physical body was asleep. So when he came back, he didn't remember exactly what happened, but he had this feeling inside of him that he was being taken care of. Yes, he has all of us, he was still human, right? He was still feeling the process of discarnation, of leaving the loved ones. But inside, he knew that the moment was arriving, that he was being taken care by these spiritual guides who loved him very, very much. So on the day of his discarnation, the day that he was supposed to be disconnected from the physical body, he prayed. He felt the need to pray. And his mother, who was already in the spiritual realm, had already passed away for a few years, he felt the need to pray for Mother Mary and to ask if he could, right? He asked for his mom. And in a beautiful, beautiful description by André Luiz, we see that he had the merit to have his mother, who was also an elevated spirit, to be there, to accompany him in this process. So his mother was there, André Luiz and the team of doctors were there. They were giving passes and they were helping throughout this process. And then André Luiz describes to us that what happens in those moments? We come, and when we incarnate, when we are in the process of reincarnating, we know we're connected, our physical body is connected molecule by molecule to our spiritual body, our perispirit that envelops our spirit. So let us think for a few moments. It takes us 9 months for that connection to become even stronger and stronger when we are reincarnating. So the process of discarnation is also a gradual process. It doesn't happen in a snap. It takes some time. And André Luiz describes to us that are 3 main regions where we, in that process of disconnecting our physical body and our spiritual bodies, that is really, really important during this time. First is our solar plex. That's what we call in spiritism, the chakra that is connected with our digestive system. So that is one of them. The second one is our heart chakra, connected with our emotions. And the third one is our crown chakra here, right on top of our heads. And this, as we see here in this picture from Projeto Imagem on this book of Dima's Discarnation, this is our last connection, the last link that is broken. So, in this process of Dima's discarnation, receiving the help and the support, we learn that his physical body died. But as we see here, the link, the connection of the perispirit and the physical body was not completely broken yet. So it brings to our next topic here, because it's very important for us to clarify the difference between death and discarnation. As spirits, is important for us to know, because this will influence as we see ourselves and loved ones at the time of our death or discarnation. So, what is this difference? And these are concepts that you can read more in the Spirit's book, in the Heaven and Hell book, and also in the books by André Luiz, especially this one that we are studying tonight. He talks about this process. So, what is death? Well, death is the extinction of organic life. It's when the doctor calls the time of death. That is when there's the cessation of the physical life, our organic life. However, that doesn't equal to discarnation, because as we saw in the previous slide, where Dimas is here taking care in the arms of his mom, his very spirit is being taken care of. But he was dead, but he was not completely discarnated yet. So then what is discarnation? Well, the higher spirits tell us discarnation is the separation, the complete separation of the soul from the body by breaking this fluidic connection, this molecule to molecule connection that we have. That is when all the links, when that final link is disconnected, that is when discarnation happens. And why is this important? Well, it's important because the spirit still connected with the body. Although might not be completely conscious, they feel everything that is happening around them. They perceive. We'll continue talking more about this in a minute, but let us understand more about this process. It's a gradual process, as we described. It doesn't happen in a snap. It takes some time. Nothing in nature is momentarily. It is a gradual process. However, the speed varies according to ourselves. It's individual, depends on us. What it depends on? Well, for some, it's very quick. And for whom those are very quick? Well, those who prepare themselves, like we said, every day, remembering, thinking, well, we're here living in the terrestrial world, but we're spiritual beings. This is not our true home. And the choices that we make throughout our day, throughout our lives, it's focused on what we will take in that luggage. When our plane stops, lands, we will not take anything physically. We will not take any material things. We'll take the moral achievements, the virtues that we acquire. But what happens to those who are materialistic? Those who have been focusing in materialism and the sensual energies. This is very important for us to remember. That separation takes longer. And the Spirit says it might take days, weeks, even months. Yes, does that mean that we might be physically dead, but we're still connected to our physical body? Yes, that is true. This is not for us to be afraid, but is to open our eyes to think about how will our discarnation happen? How are the choices that we're making in our day-to-day will affect that? Which brings us to our third point. Is there suffering during the time of discarnation? Because we hear the opposite, right? People die, and a lot of people say, oh, at least now they are not suffering anymore. And Luciana is going to tell us how is wrong for us to say the sentence has spiritism, because we don't know. Everyone will go through the process that they have to go through. Luciana is going to describe to us what happens next. So we need to stop and think. And they say, well, the suffering depends on the adherence force that binds the body with the spirit. So if this linkage that we have, that we described, is very, very strong, very tight, yes, that process will be a more arduous process, will be a harder process for us to go through. So, the stronger the ties with matter, that leads to greater of the suffering. But if we focus on intellectual and the moral activity, elevate thoughts that facilitate the separation, then that will become looser. And let us remember, friends, every day when we go to sleep, our physical body sleeps and our perispirit is freer to move around. We are already practicing every day going back to the spiritual realm. So we can, throughout our lives, practicing, making sure that that connection is looser. But it will depend on our choices. So it really depends, as we talked before, the luggage that we'll carry with us. If it's a heavy luggage, if it's focused on the house that we will buy, the job that we will get, the fame, the status, then, or those who have strong ties, they think, oh, but I don't have any of the materialistic thing, but they think that their family is more important than others. So then how are they going to be able to have that easier disconnection if they're so tied to their physical family? Not thinking about our immortal family, our extended family. So what happens with Dimas? Let's go back to the book. As we saw, his physical body was dead. The discarnation process was still not completed. And let's remember, friends, he was an arduous worker. He had married. This is a case of someone who had married. But he was there at his funeral. But the link was still there. So he can still perceive those things that are happening around him. So another point for us to think about when we go to the viewing of others, or as we think through how we would like for our when we discarnate, our funerals to be held. It's important that we keep the vibration higher, thinking good things, prayer, good thoughts about those who discarnated. Because what happens if we bring that energy down? André Luiz shows to us. When someone at Jima's funeral made one comment about something that had happened long time ago, that he was retelling the story, he made that connection with the lower spirits, and right there, in a snap, they come. They are attracted. So how can we secure that the viewing process for those who are in the process of discarnating is carefully taken care of, making sure that prayer, people are not, André Luiz describes, every time that the wife will go and cry and call his name, Dimas will feel it because he was still connected. So, knowing of this, we will be able to, doesn't mean we're not going to cry, we're not going to feel sad, but we will leave in God's hand. We will say, God, you know the reason why. But we will not keep calling the person's names because they will feel it. The connection is still there. But Dimas, the time came. The mentor make that last disconnected, the last link. Now he was freer. He was able to see his mom. He was still in that moments of confusion, but now he was able to understand better what was happening to him. And that brings us to our last point tonight, before Luciana tells us more what happens next, right? Now we're talking about the moments of discarnation. Well, the physical body that is there is still us. Remember the fuel that comes in the airplane, our vital fluid? Well, as the physical body dies, there's still that vital fluid that is right there. In Jima's case, because he had married, we can see that the moment of his burial, the mentors were able to dissipate those last vital fluids that were there. But why this is important, friends, and it's important for us to know? Because there are spirits, discarnate spirits, still very connected with our lower vibrations, our passions in life. That if you are not in a secure environment, they will come and they will take advantage of that last fluids that are there. Those is what we call the vampire spirits. In another case on this book, André Luiz describes to us how we see here in this picture. And you might be asking, but Daisy, how come? How can God allows for this to happen? Let us remember, friends, God is loving and merciful, but he gives us our free will. And as a loving father, he sent his messengers to help us. But if we're not ready to go through this process, if our connections, the connections that we make in our day-to-day lives are of lower vibration, what? Excess, eating too much, right? Drinking, drugs, sex, money, fame. What type of spirits we gonna attract? And in another book that was published just last year by Divaldo Franco, by the Spirit Manuel Filomena de Miranda. His book is still in Portuguese, titled, in Portuguese, No Rumo do Mundo de Regeneração, Towards a Regenerative World. There's a chapter where they describe to us that those who are discarnating, many who are discarnating due to the COVID, that didn't work in their spirituality, in focusing, as we started, focusing, thinking that we're here living on earth, but our true home is the spiritual realm, making choices in our days. When they discarnate, they will not be able to have the protection that Demas had. Demas had married, he had worked very hard, and we saw that his discarnation process still took some time, but he was protected and cared for. So, how can we, friends, work to secure when we ourselves go through this process, or when loved ones? Well, we cannot end without talking about our master, right? Because Jesus came to show to us that for us to be able to progress, he showed to us through his teachings, through his words, through his body language, that we need to think about others, think about our family, not only the blood ties, to not focus on the material things. And we will end with this quote that was shared in a study of a group in Brazil that is studying the book from Givaldo that we just shared with you, our dear Célia Regina Jorge. She shared with us in the study, let us live as spirits going through a terrestrial experience, not as an incarnate looking for a spiritual experience. Because majority of us on earth, that's how we think. We think about our immediate needs. Yeah, we might go to the center once in a while for those of us who are spiritists, or we might think about spirituality, but when it's convenient to us, when it fits in our schedule. But it's a practice to live as spirits, thinking, I'm an eternal spirit. My true home is not this home, is not this family. I'm going through this terrestrial experience now. But as in an airplane, we'll be asked to land. We don't know when it will be. But we, friends, having God as our co-pilot, we can guide the airplane to go and land in a beautiful place where that transition will be easier. But if we don't put God as our co-pilot, if we think we can manage the plane ourselves, we're gonna get lost and the plane will land and we will be very surprised when we open our eyes and see. So let us focus, friends, in putting God as the co-pilot to really focusing on in living as spirits going through a terrestrial experience. So now we're gonna pass to our dear Luciana, who's gonna tell us more about what happens after the moment of discarnation. Right, Lu?
Right. And how beautiful was this introduction to help us to prepare to this passaging, because as we live the life here in the planet Earth, we are living to prepare ourselves to go back to the spiritual realm. So as we continue doing this study, and we see that we are going back to the spiritual realm, is something that we need to really address and think about it. So we are living in the planet Earth, as Daisy just finished to us, as a living being with a physical body, but we need to prepare ourselves to go back to this place where we belong. Planet Earth is a school. We are here learning, acquiring new teachings, and we have so many books, so many good teachings that we can acquire while we are here. We should be very thankful for having Spiritism bringing us the light, the pathway, the roadmap for, for life. And all these teachings will help us to better live our lives here and transitioning to the spiritual realm. And as the question today, 932 in the beginning of this study, it was saying that we need to be saying, doing the good. So it's time for us to put in practice all this good, all that we are learning, because only then we will be able to do this transition and go to the disincarnation, returning back to the spiritual realm without the confusion, because we are living in this planet and lost because we don't have the we spiritists has the information, but many of us have no instruction, and we need to be attent because we are living in this planet and not preparing for the disincarnation, not preparing to go back, and that's where we're gonna suffer. And Daisy mentioning about our dear friend Celia, and Celia also in the study mentioned that we have the social life, right? Social media nowadays. And what good are we posting out there? Are we sharing things that is empty? If we are doing so, we need to analyze what we are sharing, because we need to be living and sharing and doing the good all the time, because we don't want to transition and be tormented by what we post, be tormented of emptiness. So, in this part 2, chapter 3 of the Spirit book, as we start studying, question 163 to 165 comes and show us about the spirit state of confusion after death. And as we prepare for death, as we mentioned, we don't want to be morbid, but this is only one guarantee and certainty that we have. Daisy just finished telling us about the vampires, right? So let us see what Kardec tells us from the book. On, on the question 163, he asks, upon leaving the body, is the soul immediately conscious of itself? Immediately is not the right word. It remains in the state of confusion for some time. So we have this spirit that we have to transitioning as we prepare ourselves to reincarnate. The same happen as we are disconnecting. We saw the case of Demas, and he was a spiritist and he prepared himself, but there was a lack, a little small thing that he forgot to do, to instruct the family. Are we instructing our family about the spiritual realm? Because we are the ones coming, making this effort to join forces and come and learn from the spirits. But what about our families? And what about our friends? Are we doing the good, or are we being timid? As we read the chapter, the question in the beginning. We need to really analyze and see how we're being called, because we are receiving so much, and so much we need to give and to share. And we need to prepare in order to not have the vampire spirits around us, getting the fluids that is due to our vice, due to our undisciplinary habits that we have, because daily we are living in this society that we think everything is good and normal. For the greater society it is, but for us that has a spiritism, that has this light showing us the pathway to go, we already know that all the spiritual disturbance, the madness, all the things that are happening in the planet, even the pandemic, is a result of the bad, of the evil, of the things that we are not doing, and is coming and showing into the planet to try to shake it up and help us. So we want to prepare ourselves and clean the psychosphere of the planet, clean us. We want to progress. We want to be prepared. And we all gonna return. No one is has an exception. Nobody has a VIP card. No one has anything different than anybody. We are all children of God. We all came to the planet Earth as a school, as a student, learning to go back to the spiritual realm. So we need to acquire as much as we can, as much knowledge as we can. So we prepare ourselves to protect when we go to the other side and don't have all this problem. And the spiritual perturbation happens because we are not watching what we are doing, what we are thinking. We need to think more about our actions. And as mentioned, not only thinking about what is good for ourselves, we need to think about the great community, the humanity as a big family, because only doing charity, only loving one another, only being connect with this flow of love, that we are aligned with God, that we are aligned with the laws. So we need to work in ourselves and help everyone around us to transform, so we don't have this confusion when we go back to the spiritual realm, because we're going back to where we belong. And hell, all these things that we think is bad is the state of mind. We need to prepare when we do this transition to preparing a good place for us, and also for our people that are connect to us to be able to do this transition even better, and just like many spirits are able to do if they do the very good discipline and try and strive daily to be better beings. Kardec continued, and on questions 164, he asked, do all spirits experience the confusion that flows the separation of a soul and the body to the same degree for the same amount of time? And no, no was the answer. It depends on how evolved they are. Those who are already purified are almost immediately self-aware because of their detachment from the matter during corporeal life. So if we already connect with the good spirits, if we do the meditation, if we take time to make our spirit free, to make our spirit expand, to go to those places, to places more better vibrational, more elevated, we are already exercising going back. So when this happened, we are aware and we know what is going on. However, carnal individuals who in pure consciousness retain the impression of the matter much longer. So if we are more connected, if we don't make it those experiences to do meditation, preparing ourselves, putting in practice all the teachings that we are receiving, we are more grounded, we are harder to disconnect, thus making harder for us to understand and know what is going on with us. Because as our scholars in Brazil are teaching us, that sometimes people have no idea that they are reincarnated and living life. It's living such an automatic mode that we cannot see that we are here to serve, to love, to be charitable to everyone. If we are living our lives escaping from the law of love, we are missing the connection and the importance of this reincarnation that we are having. So we need to analyze and see if we're doing good, being charitable, practicing the love, so we can actually be living in connection with God, in connection with divinity. And this question now is one very important and is long and brings us so much teachings that are grave for us, because the teachings that spiritists give to us is not only good for now, but is good for life. Because as we learn, we are able to change, to recycle, to address who we are, and become better beings. So as we do this, we take those teachings with us, and we can go better on the spiritual realm and prepare better for our next reincarnation. So all these teachings that we are doing here is adding to our lives. This is what we need to do, adding things, not wasting or subtracting things from our spiritual growth. We wanted to progress. We wanted to be joining forces with the Master and go forward. So he asked, does an understanding of the spirits have any influence on the short or long duration of this confusion? And Kardec and the spirits answered to him, it has a very considerable influence, because the spirit understood what is the situation will be beforehand. The practice of good and purity of conscience exerts the most influence. And we'll stop here for a little bit. So this influence is something that is huge to us. As we know, we are surrounded of spirits, and we project our thoughts. It's like a cloud around us, projecting everything that we're thinking. So we attract what we are emitting. So we always need to be practicing this good in order to have this purity, a pure conscience. And how do we do this pure conscience? We need to address the problems that we are having with familiar spirits that comes and live with us in our house. We need to see what are the problems in our life and address right there and then when we have the opportunity to be living with them. So studying and knowing the influences that we are emitting and attracting to life is what's going to help us. So are we practicing the good? Think about it. Are we practicing the good just for ourselves, just for our family? How are we practicing the good? So Mentor Joseph taught us, and he said very wisely, let us see on this scale of life, on our 24 hours a day, how many hours of practicing the good are we actually practicing the good? Because we have 24 hours a day, and 8 to 12 hours is for work. Another 8 we are sleeping. What we are doing with the other time that we are awake? And remember, we were taught by the good spirit, and even Mentor Joseph taught us to do the smart sleeping. Are we doing the smart sleeping, going to a good place? Remember to make a prayer before we sleep so we can actually go and help and serve and receive treatment when we're sleeping. So we need to see our daily routine, what we are doing, and see how are we practicing the good. Let us remember that the good is to doing something that we are not receiving anything monetary, salaries, or anything in exchange. Doing the good is giving the love and helping others without expecting anything back to us. So we need to analyze. And without charity, we know there is no salvation. So we need to think about it, how we can be more charitable of our time, of our attention, of our ears, and be loving and help. And remember to not to be worried only about ourselves, because that's when we break and lose and don't make this practice of the good. So the practice of the good and purity of conscience exerts the most influence. However, at the moment of death, everything appears confused at first. The soul needs the same time to recognize itself. It feels that, like someone waking out of the deep sleep, who tries to understand the situation, the lucidity of its ideas and the memories of its past return as the influence of the matter from which it has just freed itself is extinguished and the sort of fog that had obscured its thoughts is disappeared. So, as we see here, when we are disincarnating, we have this time of transition, we time of being figuring out where we are. And we, as connect with the good spirits, we are able to transitioning easier and better. But if we are, as our friend Anna in Brazil taught us, if we're alienated, if we're not connected with the law of love, we are escaping the law of love. We are going away of the teachings of the master. And we cannot be able to make this transition easily because we're so lost in the middle of the day-to-day things, and we think it's okay. Society is pushing us, saying that it's okay to do what everybody's doing. But for us that knows and has those books, Spirit's book in hands, we know we need to change and we need to address today, because pandemic is knocking on our door and we can be called to return, to go back tonight to the spiritual realm. And we need to be sure we are aligned and be able to do this transitioning the best ways possible, so we can go to the spiritual realm and already running, doing good things. Otherwise, we will receive help, but will take time and we could be doing much more. And as we continue in this book, the laws of love of the Spirit Emmanuel, and we were just talking before we start these meetings, how many books Chico Xavier, Emmanuel have brought to us that are not too thick or too big, that we can read and acquire so much teachings. So this book is one of the books that also help us to understand the pathologies of the soul, because as we live our lives in acquiring vices, not being connected with the flow of love, we are creating pathologies for our lives. So the feeling of sorrow, resentment, despair, frictions, and irritation bring us to this not love flow, and it really disturbs us when we are back in the spiritual realm. So irritation, frustration and irritation interways cries of the thoughts, establishing mental injuries, and that culminate the pathological process in the body and soul when they do not at once turn into fellows of madness or the death shadow. So if it doesn't make us look crazy or being mad in the physical realm, in the spiritual realm, all of these feelings is gonna come and make us not align with this flow, and will be disturbed, will be suffering, because those energy of all these feelings, it brings to us the connections and illness of the soul. So that's why it's important, very important for us to really start learning who we are, really start trying to put things in place, like, organizing the house. We need to organize our spiritual home, because until today, we may didn't know that there are so many things that we need to address and prepare ourselves to go back. And if we feel vanity, if we feel all the seven sins, right? We need to work on it, because it is human. Yes, it is. But we have spiritism now bringing us pathways, guidance to help us to recover that and change life. And as we change, we are able to make it easy on our disincarnation, make it easy for us when we are in the spiritual realm. So we need to really think about it. How is our soul today? Are my acts, my actions, my thoughts, everything, my being, is it positive or is it negative? It depends on my connection, on our connection. Are we connecting with good spirit or not very good spirit? And how can we disincarnate with this heavy load? If we have all these feelings, how can we disincarnate easily? It's gonna be hard, because this is heavy in our spirits. It keeps us so grounded, it keeps us so in a different place that we are not able to fly, to graduate as we want to graduate. So if we have those feelings, we need to to unload this heavy load in order for us to transform and be better on the spiritual realm. We need to solve our problems while we have the opportunity to be solving the problems with those that we have. If it's the family member, if it is with friends, no matter the issue that we have, we need to see as an opportunity and work on it. Because if we ignore, if we don't do anything, believe it or not, it's gonna be in our prayer spirit, and we'll have to deal with when we return to the spiritual realm. And as we were studying, Vanessa mentioned to us, every cell of our body is being uploaded in the time of this incarnation. So everything that we have is almost little bits of us is being uploaded. So the cell has an impression, our thoughts has an impression, all of us is being transferred back to the spiritual realm. So we need to really focus how we can better prepare ourselves to return to the spiritual realm and leave the physical here. So if we can fix it, we will leave this. If we cannot fix it, we will leave the same thing over and over again. Like we have a life cycle, right? And this is all good. And then all of a sudden it comes and it happens the same. It means that we didn't learn the lesson that we had to learn, and this keep coming back and back and back in our life, because we need to learn and move on. So reincarnations, different experience throughout this life is coming back to us. We need to think about it and address right now so we can return lighter. We need to pray, and this pure conscience is to take care of our spiritual home. We need to really take care who we are spiritually, because we need to address better, because right now we have many tools and we can do that. And the spirits continue telling us the duration, that state of confusion follow that varies greatly. So it may last a few hours, several months, or a year, or even years. The ones who experience is at least experience it for the least amount of time are those who have identified themselves with their future state during the life that they immediately understand their positions. So it's a state of mind. And we bring here Andre Lewis from Solar that when he disincarnated, he was living a life for society perfect. He had a great life. He was a doctor. He was helping some of the people in the planet Earth. But when he disincarnated, remember the book? He was called as a suicidal criminal. He was like suffering. Look where he ended up. And for us, seeing him in the physical life, oh my gosh, he was a good person. He has done everything right by the law of the society. But by the law of love, this flow of love, he was disconnected. And he had to experience this part because it was in his mind. This is what he was living. This is the experience that was bringing to him. And this last week, we have another example of someone that is disincarnated, Sweli Schubert. She has disincarnated, and because she lived and breathed Spiritism and put in practice all the teachings that she acquired, she was able already to be manifesting and being well. She's well, she's on the spiritual realm. We already have reports from her. So if we invest this time and use all the teachings, all the books that we're receiving, we can be like her and really graduate. On the contrary, we will have those disturbances because we have not made this connection. So let us look into life and see people that are living basing on the spiritual teachings and are actually changing their lives. They can actually go to the spiritual realm better. And it's something that we need to think about because coming, listening, the teachings is one thing, but being Christian 24/7 is another thing. So we need to analyze it, seeing if we are being Christian, putting in practice the gospel, the teaching that Jesus brought to us in our life. Not only thinking it's beautiful, but not putting in practice. And that's when it becomes hard for us because we need to be Christian, loving, and putting in practice daily. So this confusion presents particular aspects depending on the character of the individual, and especially depending on the type of death involved. In violent deaths, suicide, capital punishment, accident, stroke, mortal wounds, and others, the spirit is surprised and astonished. It does not believe it's to be death. So we know sudden death, if something happens, people sometimes cannot really figure out that this transition happened. And especially by the quality of life that we were living. Right? Most of spirits that commit suicide are not living a more elevated life. They're not connecting, doing good, being charitable. Otherwise, they wouldn't be thinking about doing the suicide. That's why it's important for us to see if we're being Christian, because if we are able to take all these thoughts aside and focusing and feeling optimistic because we trust and we know all the good. Moreover, it seems it's the body living there and knows who it belongs to, but does not understand that it is now separate. It seeks out loved ones and speak to them, but cannot understand why they cannot hear them. This illusion lasts until the separation is complete, and only then does it realize its situation and understand that it is no longer part of the world of the living. So sometimes this happens and the spirits start to approach and keeping in the same place that they were before, coming to the families, trying to talk to them. And through thoughts, sometimes they think they're being replied, being having conversation, and they are actually not feeling and knowing that they actually had disincarnated. So let us prepare so we don't be lost and don't go to this spiritual realm where we want. And again, Andrea Luis was a great person in the world, but when he returned, he had lacked all this teaching of the spiritual world and was not able to go straight to this place where he could be guided. And here we have the images of the other book, a spiritual book. All the images that is showing to us are from books that help us. And we see people committing suicide and suffering, and this actually they continue to live in this until they are actually able to pray deeply and be able to find help. So we have the Mother Mary Institution. We have many spirits in the spiritual realm that are able to help them because of the dramatic and the situation that they're incarnated. As Daisy mentioned, everybody received help, but if we prepare ourselves, we will be able to receive this help and help others faster and progress. And still in the answer, he said, this phenomena is easy to explain. Surprised by unforeseen death, the spirit is stunned by the sudden change that has taken place. It still believes that death is synonymous with this destruction and annihilation. And since it continues to think, see, and hear, it does not consider itself to be dead. This illusion is strengthened by the fact that it finds itself in a body similar to the one it just left, and it has not yet ascertained its ethereal nature. Instead, it presumes that it is a solid and compact like the other, and it is astonished when it is pointed out that is pointed out that this body is not tangled. It is a phenomenon similar to that of some inexperienced somnambulists who do not believe that they are asleep. So if we are not prepared, all these sensations is gonna happen to us. And Demas, in his reincarnation, he was able to graduate, and he was able to feel the care and loving of all of the friends in the spiritual realm. But remember, his family was there and grounding him. And the part important here is more generalized among those who have not thought of dying despite having been ill. So some people believe that their sleeping is as synonymous with the suspension of the faculties. And since they can see and think freely, they do not perceive that they are asleep. So it's so interesting. If we're not preparing ourselves, we think we are living the life, we are in the same situation. But as we prepare, we are clear, easier, ready to continue our life in the spiritual realm, and knowing that we're graduating, knowing that we're in the right place, knowing that we don't need to go through confusion if we prepare ourselves. And there is nothing painful about the state of this confusion because it's a state of mind. For those whose conscience is not pure, it's full of anxiety and anguish. So if we not prepare ourselves, we feel this dramatic change. But if we prepare ourselves, it's smooth. We are in this life knowing that it's just an experience and it's gonna go through. as we start talking about that we are part of this plane, right? The plane takeoff is the incarnation that we are having. We'll have to land, change, and go to other places. So we always gonna have experience to change and transform, but it all depends how prepared we are. The first time someone goes on a flight, sometimes they are very afraid, they are not prepared. But then the second one, they already know everything that's going to happen. It is prepared. And that is why it's important for us to take the time in this math that Mentor Joseph taught us, and to take at least an hour a day reading something or a chapter or a little paragraph or something in which is going to help us to grow and to progress and prepare ourselves. We always need to remember that we are eternal spiritual being, that this body is going to perish when it's time, when the life fluid is done. This body will perish and we will go to the spiritual realm, and we wanted to prepare for that. We have many experience of that, but now we are receiving these teachings how to prepare better, because past incarnations we probably didn't have all this information, and we were committing the same mistake. We were going through this confusion state. We were going to places that we didn't like. That's why sometimes we fear death, because we didn't prepare for death. But now, with all this book, all these study sessions that we're having, we have a lot of tools in hands to help us to prepare better, and to, like Suli Chopper, that finish her life and graduate and is ready and is calming and is she's in a great place, and her whole family was prepared. So it's up to us to work on our disincarnation, to see how we're going to be on the other side, and how we are going to prepare the whole family so they can be calm, so they can be peaceful, so that the whole process is a natural process, and not a traumatizing process. So we all should be working together, because we want to be there, be graduating when we go from the physical realm, acquiring so much knowledge, acquiring so much good in us, and doing this good, doing this charity, always working with the team of the good spirit. We wanted to be there and graduate and skip this part of confusion. So let us meditate, friends, and see how we can change our lives, how we can change our thoughts in order to better prepare us to this plight. And we we need to think about it in decisions that we do with life, because every single minute, every single second in our life, it counts something. So in the last minute of life, we need to prepare ourselves to make this transition. That's why it's important for us to keep the life of all of those loved ones that are in hospitals, wherever they may be, as much as we can, because sometimes the last second is the second that they need to transform themselves and don't go through this confusion to these places that we want to skip as we graduate, as we take the time and investment in our soul, in our schools of soul. We wanted to graduate and get to the other round without being confused, being better.
All right. A lot of food for thought. Thank you, Luciana. Thank you, Daisy. We're very great. You see the richness of Kardec's books, André Louis' books. it's good if we by now are feeling like, oh my gosh, I have to study more. Good. That's the goal. Because in the spiritual realm, that's something we didn't disclose here until now. Where can we find these books? We've never heard of any library in the lower zones. There's no library in the Valley of Suicides. In the worst, no. Where are they? In the colonies. But who goes to the colonies? The ones that want to regenerate themselves, or the ones that already married, right? A preparation. Not everybody goes through the spiritual colonies before they reincarnate. And even when we go, we don't have access just because we need merit, our bonus. Here on earth, if you have money, you can buy. No money, because you can Google it and read it for free. There are many spiritist books for free. Buying or not buying, we have easy access. So, we better prepare ourselves. It reminds me of a friend in Guatemala who is a spiritist physician, Edwin Bravo. He coordinates the spiritist movement in the Central Americas. And he said to us once that in some parts, some villages in Guatemala, where it's hard to access physically, it's hard to get to those mountains, those villages. The people who become spiritists or get to know, they don't have libraries, they don't have bookstores. So there are some villages that have the habit of having children, teenagers, and adults memorizing the spiritist books and to quote by heart, because they only have sometimes one copy for the whole village. And then I thought, oh my, so that's a good thing. I'm going to read it, memorize it, because however I'm going and wherever I'm going, at least I can memorize these books, because God knows if I'll have access, right? So thank God we have these books and we're here discussing, studying together. We have Michele. Thank you, Michele. She's asking a question that is important. Thank you. All questions are important, but this one's very interesting. Can the movement of the dead physical body hinder the discarnation process? It not hinder, but it can create disturbances. For example, let's talk about decomposition of the body. It's apparently still, but the worms are eating it up. If this is the case of suicide, the spirit that is not fully detached is connected to the physical body through the connections of the spiritual body, the perispirit, can feel the movements. It doesn't hinder it, but it can be painful, uncomfortable, however word we want to use. But the spirit explain can be difficult for the spirit that was still connected to the body. What does that mean? That we need a lot of care. But think about it, Michele. A baby is born. The baby is there. We change the diaper of the baby. Did you see how many parents change the baby's diapers? They're talking on the phone, they're talking to somebody, they're making faces. Well, if we want the dead body to be respected and cared for, we also need to begin when people, that's a good thing, to respect the physical body from the get-go when it's in the womb. The more we understand the physical body as the best pet we ever have. Because this is fully domesticated. We want to walk, it walks. We want to run, it runs. And I say figuratively speaking, in the sense of like majority of times we can do things and we think and the body responds. But the body is not us. We're not going to hinder the discarnation, but we're going to make the spirit that is connected feel, resent what we're doing. There are creepy things, people talking about raping cadavers and people not being respectful during the preparation of the body for a funeral, talking jokes, or the people who are at the funeral houses listening to crazy music during the preparation of the body for the funeral. All of that influences the discarnation process, but not in the sense of hindering it, but creating this, what Kardec says, malaise, this ill feeling, maybe uncomfortable, maybe painful, and we don't want to cause that. So it's a good question that you ask, and you see how much we have to advocate for people who are discarnating. Let's be not only very aware of it, but very loving. We know somebody discarnated, immediately pray, right? Second, respect the body, because there are connections still being cut. Respect because this body says it's a blessing from God that is going to be recycled. And we also, when we participate in funerals, viewings, especially viewings, we need to be very, as Oceana mentioned and showed the pictures of the studies of the book, Daisy mentioned, it's important that we are the ones, remember the beginning of the session, the Spirit's book, question 932? Don't be afraid to advocate for those who are discarnating. I remember when my father discarnated last year, it was September 11th. I couldn't be there on the same day because of the whole pandemic. They had to do the viewing and the funeral. I was connected through the internet. And there were people who were there who were not spiritists. But I talked to my mom beforehand and I said, Mom, we need to protect Dad and make sure that the whole family knows the rules. No chit-chatting during the viewing. No, we are going to pray, read a message, and let's make it brief because we don't want people to be lingering there talking nonsense that makes the ambience terrible for those who are still in the process, transitioning. We don't need to lecture anybody, but we need an agreement with key people in the process. And talk to the family members in loving ways. Sometimes we don't want to talk about the death, but we can give our best to say, let's pray. Because sometimes people want to go over. I don't believe they died. I don't believe. No, we believe and we want to be focused. Now we don't argue anymore. We don't discuss, we surrender. If God thought this is the time for it, so be it. We're going to process it with resignation, with calm, so the spirit that discarnates can receive the support that they need for the process. When a baby is being born, we prepare ourselves. When a loved one is discarnating, we need the same loving care, the same protection to make sure that they go through easily, as Daisy and Luciana well explained to us. And we thank you, Michelle, for bringing this important question as well. Friends, now we're going to march towards praying. Since we're talking about going back to the spiritual realm, let's pray for those whom we know that discarnated, those whom we don't know, but we know discarnated. Millions of lives in this past year, in this pandemic. Let us pray together, all right? And receive the passes where you are, because the good spirits, they are everywhere. And God provides in ways that He only knows opportunities for us to be treated, all right? I'm going to bring all the other friends who are here with us so we feel like we are in a big room all together, all right? Praying with you, visualizing all of ourselves around the world in a big classroom in the spiritual realm. Let us feel illuminated hands of the spirit doctors applying onto us, renewing energies, bringing spiritual fluids that deeply revitalize us. We visualize these rays of light showering upon us, displacing unwanted thoughts, feelings. It's our mental spiritual hygiene moment. We visualize molecules of nourishment for the soul, remedies to treat lesions in our spiritual body, in the physical body. And we visualize our blood system totally illuminated by love, flowing calmly under the loving care of God. As we breathe in and out, we raise our thoughts in gratitude to God. Dear God, for many millennia, we thought of you as someone who would be upset with us, punish us, rule over us. But now we find with Jesus and Spiritism that you're the creator of love, of everything good, including the joy of living, the laughter, the sense of humor. You invented kindness and compassion. So we know you are all of it. Right now, we feel ourselves in your arms, provident and secure, and we feel ourselves so safe, feeling that the world is safe because you are You are our creator, the sustainer of our lives. Whether incarnated or discarnated, we live and exist. We don't feel sorry for those who departed because they merited the completion of this life. We pray instead they find themselves in your company through the loving hands of the spirit messengers. We also pray for those who are now in the transition of discarnation, that they remember of you, because we know that the process can be easily facilitated by our constant relationship with you in deep awareness. We pray for those who create death, the homicidal people, the suicides, for they don't know what they are doing. We pray that they find peace in their minds and an opportunity for a new beginning. And for the lives around the world who are feeling stagnated or wandering after death, may they observe the healing touch of their loved ones calling them up. May they perceive how much they are loved so they can be rescued and move on, pressing on their evolution. Thank you for bringing all of us together and for renewed hope as you invite us to advocate for life, respecting it, whether incarnated or discarnated. Feeling your envelopment of love, we thank you always for your providence, abundant and constant. With your permission, we close these therapeutic educational moments, and so be it. All right. While we were here discussing this important topic about life, because life and death are the same coin, right? Just on different sides. It's life and life. Our dear Carol and Paloma, they were teaching the children about something that is so life-saving. It's about the power of the mind and how careful we need to be with our connections, right, Carol and Paloma?
Right, Vanessa. We talked to the children about the fact that our thoughts are electromagnetic, and just like the magnet, we attract what we emit. So every one of those incarnate or discarnate alike that are on the same frequency as we are will be attracted to us. That's why, as Luciana said, and as Daisy said as well tonight, it's so important for us to seek the good and visualize the good and feel the good and mold the good with all the resources that we have at hand. Right, Paloma?
Yes, and also we talked to them about when we do have the emotions, that we're attracting the negative emotions, the negative thoughts, what do we do when those situations happen? And that is when we replace it with a positive thought. So that was the activity we did together, and that's what they're going to work as a family for the whole week.
Wow, that's very important. There is a video clip at the beginning, very short and very powerful. It shows to us about the power of the mind, the power of the written words and feelings, and the consequence. It's beautiful, and it's, I would say, a must, especially for those who have little kids, because we need to prepare them better for their teenage years. Many parents think it's so easy, they take it lightly, and then teenagers come, or preteen, and it's a whole nother story, and it's too late. Don't wait it. That's why we have the playlist of Cardiac Radio for Kids, lessons that are customized very thoroughly to make sure we empower the children for their lives and their responsibility towards the progress of the world. We want to thank everyone who joined us. If you have any question, any suggestion, or comment, the hotline is open, cardiacradio@gmail.com. Just write it up and we'll talk to you there. Thank you, friends. And until next Friday in our Friday Inspirational Talk. Bye-bye.